The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 152.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library,
the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book
that will enable you to grow personally and professionally.
Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today, we have a returning guest, one of my favorite guests of all times. I hope he keeps writing books because I want to continue to talk to him. Unbelievable guy, Greg S. Reid, and author of, and I said it was his latest book. He actually has one that just re-released, but his latest new one is Thoughts Are Things. And this book, you guys know, I am maybe one of the biggest fans of Napoleon Hill's work with Think and Grow Rich. And Greg will get into this, but the very first words, Think and Grow Rich, thoughts are things. And in this interview, he's going to talk about that there's even a step further than just thoughts are things, and some action items. Unbelievable interview. One of my favorite people to talk to. One of my favorite interviews, and I can't wait for you guys to listen in. So without further ado, let's pull on Greg. Welcome back, Greg, and thank you for joining us once again on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Well, I've been looking forward to sharing a little bit of time with you, Wade. I got to tell you, it's been really cool. From the last experience of spending a little bit of moments with your fan base here. Not only did we get the 3 feet from gold message out there, but it's really been getting a lot of calls and emails. So thanks for all the work you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. And for those of you who have not listened to that episode or read that book, 3 Feet from Gold, he covers it in episode 18. So definitely finish this one and go check that episode out as well. And Greg, for those of our listeners that have not had an opportunity to meet you a little bit personally, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us just a little bit about you personally.
Well, yeah, my name is Greg. I live in San Diego, California with my wife, Alan, and my 2-year-old kid, Colt. And it was really neat. I get to write books and make movies, travel the world, and meet some of the most powerful, influential people of our time, and then tell their stories based on the 20th best-selling book in history called Think and Grow Rich.
And Greg, how many books have you written to date?
A lot. It's so funny. I've written myself maybe half a dozen, but I collaborate on so many of them where either my stories get written or, I co-author with other people. And it's been about 56 different projects now.
Oh, wow. That is excellent. So thank you for sharing that information about you personally. Now, let's jump right into your latest book, Thoughts Are Things, which was just made available for purchase back December 26th, 2014. And Greg, we're going to move quickly, but we're here to cover the top questions that our listener/future reader would like to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Thoughts Are Things?
Well, to begin with, I did Thoughts Are Things with another legendary author. His name is Bob Proctor. A lot of people might know him from The Secret or his legendary work. And this book is the very first one in the Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich series. It was published through Penguin. And the whole concept is, if you ever read Think and Grow Rich, the first 3 words are thoughts are things. And we said, what if we took those 3 words and expanded on it? And from there, we created a little gem that people are loving nationwide.
So what would you say makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Well, I'll begin with thoughts are things is not necessarily the truth. And we come right out of the bat and say it, because the realities are it's thoughts backed by massive action become things. If thoughts were things, I'd be a pizza because I'm starving right now. I'm thinking about pizza. So the realities are I'm thinking about pizza. And as soon as we're done with this interview, I'm going across the street to Pernicanos and I'm getting a piece of pizza. And then that thought will become reality. And once people understand it's the action behind the attraction that makes our dreams come true, you got to think it, you got to feel it, but ultimately you got to do it.
Did Bob, back in the day when he came out with that book, did he have a lot of people not believe in that second part? Again, that thoughts were things, that you could go step inside your garage and say, I'm a car, and then, boom, something would happen?
Yeah, well, it was published by a gal named Rhonda, I forget her last name. And it was interesting, Byrne, that's what it is, Rhonda Byrne. And it was interesting is that she cut out supposedly a lot of the people that were talking about the law of gestation, the law of action, the other laws, because they're singular focused, which they should be on their topic of law of attraction. So, yeah, I believe all of them thought that that's the actionable steps is important. But the other one I just said, law of gestation, is just as big. And everyone listen to this. If you're an entrepreneur, future entrepreneur, listen to me. Law of gestation is one of the key elements of all personal achievement. That means if you plant a carrot, it takes X amount of time before it grows and becomes a carrot. The same thing happens in business. So many people want overnight success, but there's a law of gestation for any industry and business you go into. And once you find out what that is, right from the beginning, you won't be so frustrated if a year into it you don't have that success, because that gestation period might be 2 or 3 year period. And you need to know that going in.
So how did you structure the book, Greg? Is this or how would you recommend the reader engage with your book? Did you write it so that it would be read from front to back, or can a reader jump in and jump out based on the information they need at that moment?
Yeah, you can literally open it up to any single chapter and start fresh. The way we did it was pretty original. Is that we sat down and interviewed amazing human beings and found out exactly how their thoughts, dictated where they are today. And we're not talking about regular people, by the way. We're talking about Dr. Gladys McGarey, who invented holistic medicine, this 96-year-old woman who was the first woman inducted into the American Medical Association and brought acupuncture to the United States. And we sat down with Richard Saul Warman, founder of TED Talks, even a Holocaust survivor that was interviewed for Schindler's List. I mean, we interviewed amazing people to say, look, you did not do normal things. How did your mind work? And so you can open up to any single chapter and start digging right in.
Has that been a structure that you've changed throughout the years? You've written for a while now. So is that something that you find is new, that people are no longer reading a book from front to back? And so you almost have to structure a book to where someone can jump in and read a chapter or 2 or 3 and then jump back out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe that's my publishers, because that's not the way. At the end of the day, I like to write parables, which are fake stories that take a reader through a journey, and that's how I write. And then I weave real life messages within the story, so you're learning without feeling like someone's pointing a finger and telling you what to do. However, the publishers thought it'd be very appropriate if we interviewed these people and then really highlighted their nugget, but from their own words of mouth. So what that means is it's not Greg's words or Bob's words. We just happen to interview them and take the greatest nugget and then craft it in a way the reader can sit there and go, oh my gosh, if they did that and went through it, I can do it too.
Excellent. So now that we know the purpose, a little bit of the background behind the book, let's take a deep dive into the content. We take the next 5, 8, maybe even 10 minutes and really give this future reader a great idea of what he or she can get out of your book.
I appreciate that. So again, I'm going to begin where we begin. The thoughts are things, and it's thoughts backed by massive action become true reality. And one of the big takeaways is about the subconscious mind. It's kind of like, so what you think is one thing, but what about the subconscious mind where you have no control of what it is? And one thing kept popping up was fear. The fear is one of the biggest driving things that hold us back. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And most of it is man-made fear. We spend 90% of the time worrying about 10% that really happens. And fear is a great mechanism. And it tells the subconscious mind, it files away emotional pain, regret, embarrassment, and shame. And that's why if we fail at something, we're reluctant to try it again. The subconscious mind pulls from that memory to keep us safe and away from experiencing that same outcome. Well, sometimes we have to trick that subconscious mind. And the way that people do that is that they put more positive on top of that negative. I got to interview really, really neat people. And one person that stood out for me was Richard Saul Warman, who started TED Talks. And I said, tell me your story. I go, at the end of the day, why do you do 18-minute talks and do things differently? And he goes, no reason. He goes, I just made it up. I went, no way. Everyone's now copying this thing. He goes, it's so funny. He goes, I just got tired of hearing people yak for 90 minutes. And I thought, what if we could do something contrarian, something different? And would people like it? And guess what? They did. And he started talking about contrarian look at life. And I thought that was fabulous because investors understand that concept. And what contrarian investment means is blood in the street mentality. So on horrible 9/11, God forbid, when that terrible, tragedy happened, well, all the airline stock, as we know, just plummeted and went to absolutely nothing. So a savvy investor would go buy all that stock, knowing that eventually it'll come back up. And when it does, you make a literal fortune, unfortunately, on someone else's demise. Well, it's the same type thing, even in scares of non-reality. I remember years ago, McDonald's had a mad cow scare disease, up in Canada, and McDonald's stock plummeted. So smart people went in and bought it. And what he says, if more people would watch the masses and then go the other direction, success would come out on top. I just thought that was really brilliant look at the things. Jack Beam, who was a Holocaust survivor. And I asked him, I said, how in the world did you survive? And he says, what it is? He goes, you had to be observant. You had to look at things, and you had to make up decisions just to make it one more day. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, there was this one guy who would come out there, he was some type of a police sergeant or whatever, and he'd come out on a balcony, and every single day around 9 o'clock, he'd take his gun and he'd literally shoot somebody out in the field walking by. And he says, so I noticed for myself, I would not walk in front of that field at 9 o'clock. And more importantly, I told all my family and friends not to do the same. And he goes, my whole concept came down to just survive one more day. He said it'd be impossible to get saved and rescued unless I can make it one more day. And he had this mentality of survival, but also protecting the people that he loved the most. And I thought myself, I go, isn't that a lot in business as well? The concept is if you see something that does not work, avoid that and don't repeat it. And more importantly, if you can just survive one more day until that miracle happens, something goes your direction, then that miracle can happen for you as well. I got to sit down with Brian Smith, who started UGG Boots. I love this guy. I asked him, I says, tell me how this came to be $1 billion, brand and franchise. And he says, when he first started, he was selling UGG boots out of the back of his truck to all the surfers up and down the California coast. And he says it was going pretty good, but he thought he'd go big. And he took out these expensive ads in the magazines. And he hired these really good-looking models to model the boots. And then no one would buy them. And then no one would buy him. He kept taking out more ads and no one would buy him. Finally, he went over to these surfer kids. They're about 12 years old. And he opened up the magazine, points to it and says, would you buy these UGG boots? And said, heck no. And they go, why not? He says, look at that model. That's not us. That's not real. We're surfers and skateboarders. Why would we wear something that a slanky model would wear? And he went, oh my gosh. He went and then hired all the local skateboarders and surfers up and down the coast, asked them to model the boots, put the same ads in, and boom, became a multi-million dollar brand. Sometimes the thoughts are important, but you also have to take necessary actions and course corrections to make your dreams a reality. And you keep going down the list. It's really interesting. Well, one of the cool cats I talked to, his name's Rob Angel, and he invented Pictionary, the board game that everyone does. And out of all the amazing human beings I've met, and Wade, you know this, I've met amazing people along the journeys of all these different books. He was the only person I ever met who kept all his wealth. And I asked him, I says, how in the world did you do it? And he says, well, in their 20s, they'd come home after having a party night in college, and they'd open up a dictionary and they'd try to draw the words. And there's 4 of them. And one guy, Rob Angel, says this could be a great game somehow. And no one else believed in him, and he took that action and ran with it. And sure enough, he contacted all the different people that have done the different board games, created what we know now as one of the best-selling games in the history of the world. And it was really interesting. I said, well, you're 20-something years old. You have all those boatloads of money. What'd you do? And he says, I called up the people that did the board games for like Trivia Pursuit and all the other big ones that were already successful. And I said, what did you do with all your money? What should I do? And they told him. And it was something like a simple little thing, like low yielding, mortgage bonds or something. I don't remember. It was such a simple little thing. And he didn't argue it. He just did it. Now, he could have bought a Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and imagine being 20-something years old with that much cash and capital and fame. And he did it. He just put it away and followed the counsel of these amazing people. And by doing so, here he is. He's never worked a day in his life, and he's lived off all that money, and he still has it today. And I thought, isn't it interesting? Successful people seek counsel, and failures listen to opinion. And the difference is opinion is based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, inexperience. They never done it. Counsel is based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. They paved the way. If you go to someone who's never written a book and say, I'm going to write one, your family friend's going to say, you can't do that. And you'll say, why not? I don't know. You just can't. That's their opinion. If I go to Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul and sold 100 million books, and say, I'm going to write one, he'll say, before you get started, here's what you need to know, and give me counsel based on knowledge experience. If we would spend our daily lives only seeking and listening to counsel and ignoring people's opinions, that's the day your life would change.
So, Greg, you just went through a ton of really crucial and important information. And I love you talked in the beginning how you like to do story, but then teach lessons throughout. And I love that's what you just did there too. You're such a phenomenal storyteller, even if it's not your story, if it's a story you make up or it's a story that you pull from someone else. It's so interesting. Yeah, I didn't even know about the UGG. That guy in his day. I thought Uggs were always a fashionable woman's boot until here recently, until someone shared that story with me that it was actually originally surfer wear.
Yeah, and, it's really interesting. I think I'm a great old grandpa sitting on the porch. Let me tell you. So at the end of the day, what's really nice is that in the motivational speaking business, or this industry, we'll call it personal development, unfortunately, a lot of people put their egos in front of the message. And to me, it's all about the message. And then we're just happen to be blessed to be part of that journey. And I think by putting it in the right order, the reader, the viewer, the other people can get the most takeaway because it's real for them. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. And that's our goal, and that's our achievement.
Excellent. So you perfect segue, because you just talked about the message, not getting in front of the message. And that's really what our next question is anyway. If the reader can only take away one concept, principle, action item, or what you just said, message, out of your entire book, what would you want that to be?
Well, one of the greatest things that people did is they're very careful of the people they surrounded themselves with. If we are a reflection of the people we hang out with the most, and our attitude, income, and lifestyle is the average of the group, you choose your friends wisely. And the thoughts that you put in your head are a direct proportion to the people you're hanging out with. So it's important to seek counsel and not people's opinions. And lastly, it's important also to have many mentors in our life. People say, I want a mentor. Well, that's great. But here's what's really cool is you have multiple mentors. For example, I got a mentor who's working with me on my tennis game to teach me a bad backhand. I'm getting it dialed in, but I'm not going to ask him about my financial advice. The same thing, I'm not going to ask my accountant about my relationship. And on the same note, I'm not going to ask. So I'm very careful that I surround myself with the very best in everything I'm working on, but I'm also very careful of what content and information I share with them because I can seek multiple mentors.
There's been so many quote-worthy things that you've said so far that I've even pulled out of this interview. And that's also our next question. Do you have a favorite quote from your book? And if you do, can you explain it to us a little bit or take a deep dive into it?
Yeah, one of the things I really examine here, talk about deep dive and all those things, is doing a duck dive. All the people that I realize that I've interviewed, they talk about fear. Fear always comes up. And successful people do a duck dive. Now, I live on the coast. I'm right here 1 block away from the beach in sunny San Diego, California. And the surfers, I realize that when a big wave is coming their way and they're scared, well, we'd all be scared if this big wave's coming our direction. You're on this little flimsy board. Well, a brand new novice surfer would grab a hold of that board, and when the wave crashes over them, it would break that board or themselves in half and push them to the bottom of the ocean. They might drown them or pull them a riptide or just maybe get a really bunch of cuts and bruises. Well, a good surfer does a duck dive. What they do is they look right into the belly of that wave and they point the tip of their board right into the bottom, the base of that giant wave, and they go into it head on, and then they pop up on the other side. And successful people understand that you're scared, I'm scared, we're all scared, but successful people duck dive and go right into that fear. They don't run from it, because fear's only enemy is action and the absence of faith.
What a powerful message. And Greg, this last question that we have for you is based on a book recommendation, not just any book recommendation, a book that changed your life, had a huge impact on you. And last time you brought up Think and Grow Rich, and you also brought up The Ultimate Gift. So is there another book out there that really had a huge impact on your life?
Gosh, there's so many of them. The answer would be absolutely yes. I think one of my favorite ones of all time was Fish, and it was about how to raise your morale and enjoyment at work. And people that have ever come to my private secret knock events, you'll understand is I just have fun, and I believe in having fun. And the more you can, have an enjoyment of what you do, amazing things will happen. So I'll give you an example. If I go into the office and say, hey, everyone, get another sale, and you'll get $100, that's cute. But if I could sit there and say, hey guys, as a team goal, let's everyone hit XYZ in sales. And what we'll do is we'll take the rest of the day off, go to the beach, and I'll buy, margaritas and hot dogs for everyone. Well, all of a sudden you got this team going. Everyone's working together and pulling together. And it's just for a free, simple nothing. But for some reason, people do more for a cause than they'll do for money. Mm-hmm. And so I realized how to implement that from that book, Fish. It's just absolutely fabulous.
First time we've actually had that one recommended. I love getting some first times, and I have not read that book yet, so I can't wait to dive into that. I can definitely utilize that information with our company. So, Greg, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to not only get more information on you, but also get more information on your book, Thoughts or Things?
Oh, sure. You can go to any bookstore and pick it up. I mean, the realities are there are all the different Barnes and Nobles and whatnot. You go to Amazon, and my website is bookgreg.com, just like a book. Greg.com. Go visit it. And I put a bunch of just like complimentary videos and things of that nature. One of the things about the industry is it's our nature to walk a cow out on stage, tell you need milk and all the benefits of that cow, but then you got to run in the back for $49.95 to learn how to get it out. We do the opposite. You go to bookgreg.com, everything's complimentary. The videos, the full-length movies, everything. Just we give it away. And at the end of the day, if you want to play with us a little bit more in depth, drop me an email and let me know how I can be of contribution, and the answer will be yes.
Perfect. Greg, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with us.
Hey, keep smiling, Wade. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for listening in today. I love sharing phenomenal people, phenomenal interviews like the one we just did with Greg. And if you want more information on him or his book, Thoughts or Things, visit the website, theelpodcast.com. If you want an opportunity to win this book, to get a free copy of this book, go to the same website, theelpodcast.com, and become a VIP.
Looking for your next book idea?
Head over to theelpodcast.com,
where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free.
That's theelpodcast.com.
Till the next time, keep it on the EL.